Michael Stern is back to conduct the Pittsburgh Symphony in a program of American classics. Welcome back, Maestro. Good to have you with us.
Nice to be here.
And we've got a group of American favorites here and a couple of discoveries, perhaps.
Well, what's interesting about the program is that there are only recognizable names, but in the case of Leonard BERNSTEIN and, well, Charles Tomlinson Griffes is not necessarily a household name, but it's a beautiful, ravishing piece of his that we're doing. And Bernstein, whose music is ubiquitous in every possible venue and in every possible format, wrote this ballet suite, Fancy Free, which hasn't been played here in Pittsburgh for decades. In fact, not since the composer himself conducted it very soon after he wrote it, so in the 50s.
It's Bernstein and it's ballet music, so it moves.
It certainly moves. It's jazzy. And the thing about his music, which is really fantastic, it never sounds like it's pandering. So it sounds authentic because it really is, you know, and it has this kind of genuine vernacular, which is, first of all, it sounds only like him. And both rhythmically and harmonically, it sort of pulses sort of from the time, but doesn't sound dated because I don't know, he managed to sort of extrapolate all of those indigenous elements that he had grown up with, whether it was jazz and popular music and the piano repertoire, and he was a voracious studier of scores already, and he was just Mr. Music. He was music coming out of his pores. So everything sort of gets digested and filtered and synthesized, and then it comes out as really pure him. And that is, I think, the secret of why this music, for me, works so well. I think it's genius.
Gershwin on your program. You can't go wrong with George Gershwin. Talk about if only we'd had a little more time with Gershwin.
Well, with him and Griffes both. They both died too young. Gershwin is the quintessential American songbook, you know. And American in Paris, while not a song, obviously, is an extraordinarily creative and inventive piece. And that also doesn't date, you know?
True.
It sounds as fun and fresh, and it is, you know, it is what it is of its time and so forth, but he made up a new kind of music, and he really was envelope pushing in the best possible way.
From Elmira, New York, Charles Tomlinson Griffes, the Pleasure Dome of Kubla Khan. Sounds like it could be Impressionism here?
It is Impressionism. It is absolutely, and here's a tragedy, because if he had lived longer, I think he would have produced a real body of ravishing music. I mean, it's really an extraordinarily well-written work, and it sounds, there is a sort of whiff of the kind of Impressionism that we think of in terms of Debussy, for instance. But it doesn't sound like a Debussy wannabe. It sounds, it sounds authentic, and it sounds genuine because of his mastery of the craft.
Griffes, Gershwin, Bernstein, but wait, there's more.
There's more.
What else?
Well, the Copland Appalachian Spring is a sort of signature piece for American music. People accuse Copland of writing simple music. It's not simple music. He did simplify the language enough to make the sound of the music on the surface very different than what he had written before. But it's also very beautiful. And the other key part of it is that he consciously looked to indigenous material, right? Which was a habit that composers had been using for hundreds of years. But for American music, not trying to imitate something European and realizing that our music, such as it was, because the concert music that we had in the 1800s going into the 20th century was all imported from Europe. Rather than go to European music, he went to the resources that he had: folk music, popular music, cowboy music, and jazz. And this kind of aesthetic, I think, links Copland, of course they were very friendly, but links Copland and Bernstein and sort of defines how American music grew up in the first 3, 4, 5 decades of the 20th century.